There are many kinds of scenes that can be considered the best in movies, and superhero movies are no different. But to many fans, it's often agreed that one of the greatest highlights of a well-made superhero movie is the scene where the hero and villain inevitably have a conversation about their vastly different philosophies as they each try to get the other to see things their way, even if it almost always ends in failure for both sides. Now, the reason scenes like this are so well liked is because it offers some of the best insight into what the villain thinks and believes in, as well as tests the hero's resolve and determination to do the right thing no matter what. Now, if one were to ask what the best instance of this particular exchange was in a film, most would probably be quick to say the prison interrogation between Batman and the Joker in The Dark Knight. And while that might just be one of the best instances of a philosophical superhero and villain conversation, there's another movie that I believe does the whole thing just as effectively, to the point that it might just be one of the greatest hero and villain interactions in a superhero movie ever. And today, I'd like to go over the conversation in question and explore what exactly it is that makes it so brilliant. And there will be spoilers for the movie in question ahead, so in case you've been meaning to watch it but haven't yet, you should just be on the lookout. You have been warned. Okay, so like I just said, I won't deny that the Dark Knight's confrontation between Batman and the Joker is one of the greatest instances of a superhero and villain sharing their philosophies. But the thing is, for most of the scene, it's only the Joker explaining what he believes to Batman, with Batman not really being interested in anything he has to say and only wants information from him. As a result, he's not really able to get in Batman's head and have him question what he believes in, with his physical resolve getting to him a lot more than what he's saying to him. Now, once again, it is a brilliant scene. It just doesn't test Batman's mental strength because he's not even listening to what the Joker is saying until he says he'll tell him what he wants to know. But it's still an exceptionally written scene and most definitely has the reputation it deserves. But to get back to what I was saying earlier, the superhero movie that I believe has a hero and villain conversation at least on par with the one in The Dark Knight is one that may come as a shock to some people, which is the rooftop conversation between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin in Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man movie. Because even though it's a lot shorter than the one in The Dark Knight, it's frankly amazing how much it's able to do and get across in less than 2 minutes. Especially because it's also pretty much this one scene alone that provides the entire basis for one of the most pivotal moments in Spider-Man No Way Home. But sticking to the movie in question, what's particularly brilliant here is that this scene might just say more about the character of the Green Goblin than any other, in both what is said and isn't said. Because first off, up until that point, the Green Goblin is portrayed as nothing but a murderous lunatic who will hurt anybody to get what he wants. But in this scene, we see that his thinking goes a lot deeper than that. Because first of all, he shows respect for his rival. I mean, he could have easily taken off the mask and threatened him to be his partner, but he doesn't do that. Instead, he propositions him fair and square, keeping both their identities a complete secret all the while, and even gives him time to, quote, think it over, instead of killing him the moment he rejects him. My point is, This is the same man who murdered his entire board of directors for kicking him out of his company. But rather than show a potential ally the same treatment as one might expect, he instead shows him respect. And this also extends to the way he talks about him, because you could tell that despite earlier showing major contempt for him, he also admires him. Because the Green Goblin thinks he's better than everybody else. That much is made clear early on. But he's still willing to admit that Spider-Man is in the same league as him. Again, it might be for the self-serving cause of gaining a partner and eliminating a threat at the same time, but it still shows that his narcissism isn't to the point that he can't admit that somebody is on the same level as him. So my point is, right off the bat, this scene shows that the Green Goblin does actually have a sense of honor, if an extremely twisted one as befitting him. But even beyond that, there's also the meat of the conversation. Because what is the Green Goblin's proposal exactly? That the two team up to get everything they ever wanted, instead of constantly fighting each other at every turn. But what makes the conversation even better is that Spider-Man never considers his offer for one instant. Sure, he listens to what he has to say, but none of it changes his mind about being a hero. Because, and this can be hard to notice since you can't see his face, but you can tell that he doesn't even care if the Green Goblin is right. That in the long run his good deeds will go unappreciated and everybody will turn on him, because he knows that it's still the right thing to do regardless, as he himself says. And honestly, that also speaks volumes about Peter's character as well. That Uncle Ben's death, and subsequently all the good he's done as Spider-Man, motivates him to continue doing the right thing no matter what it costs him, and how much he has to gain by turning his back on it. Because he knows the Green Goblin is evil, and he doesn't care what he has to do. He will do everything in his power to stop him. In fact, one could even say that the moment Peter doesn't even consider joining him before turning him down, that's the moment he's completed his journey to becoming Spider-Man. Because that's the first time the great responsibility that his powers comes with are really put to the test after Uncle Ben's death. And he passes it with flying colors. But on the flip side, there's also what the Green Goblin's words say for him as well. Because his speech is honestly very well written and delivered perfectly by Willem Dafoe, revealing a man of absolutely no principles who sees the absolute worst in the world. Whether motivated by Norman's personal betrayals and other poor choices, or just a product of the serum's diabolical insanity, he believes the only point to living is for the strong to take from the weak and have a ton of fun in doing so. The only thing he cares about is his own self-gratification, and he makes it clear that the people he has to kill for that only exist for that exact reason, to be pawns of his plans and for him to take stuff from, in contrast to Spider-Man, who sees them as people who he can help with their problems. In fact, he even portrays the fact that he doesn't care if he does die by the time their feud is over, just so long as he's had his fun, further showing just how cruel and hedonistic the Goblin really is. And finally, and as I touched on before, there's what he says about people's views on heroes. Because according to him, nobody appreciates a hero in the long run, both because humans forget the good one does very easily, and because they love to see heroes fail even more than succeed. So the way he sees it, there's no point to any of it, especially because to him, good and evil means nothing. The only thing that matters is that he gets what he wants. Now again, whether it's Norman's own cynicism fueling that philosophy, or whether it's just the one the Goblin developed of his own accord, is never made clear. But it doesn't need to be to get that point across. That in the end, a hero is only a monkey to amuse people for a little while, and is nothing worth getting involved with because it leads to no long-term gratification, and there's so much more to be gained by using his strength to take out the weak. In the end, that is what the Green Goblin believes. But in addition to what the conversation says about the characters, it also drives home the central theme of the movie. Because pretty much everything the Green Goblin says here is proven to be wrong. He believes that everyone will turn on Spider-Man once he stops amusing them, and that in the end he will have gained nothing. But as has been pointed out many times, civilians do come to Spider-Man's aid when he needs it most, and against the Goblin himself, no less. Which proves once and for all that not only do Spider-Man's virtues have their own reward, but that the people the Green Goblin said would turn on him the moment he wasn't of any use to them, instead come to help Spider-Man when he can't help himself. Once again showing that other people not only admire his virtues, but share them, in complete contrast to what the Goblin claims. But in keeping with the fact that he doesn't understand basic human nature at all, the significance of that moment is completely lost on him, and is instead left at a complete loss for what to think. To put it simply, in any other movie, having a bunch of random people actually stop the bad guy by pelting him with garbage would make him look pathetic. But here it works as the perfect demonstration for how wrong the beliefs he expressed in that earlier scene really are, and that it's coming back to bite him hard. And even beyond his movie, he's proven wrong about what he says. Because sure, Peter does reconsider being Spider-Man and even briefly retires, but none of that has to do with anything the Goblin said, and is instead motivated by issues with his personal life. But the point is, despite a few moments of doubt from the public, the Goblin is consistently proven wrong over the course of those 3 movies, as many express nothing but admiration and gratitude towards the web slinger. Even J. Jonah Jameson's many attempts to slander and discredit him aren't enough to get the public to turn on him en masse. I mean, he's proven right that there will always be individual people who would never be grateful to him or turn on him at the drop of a hat. But across all 3 movies, Spider-Man never has that moment where he has a complete fall from grace in the eyes of the public, unlike what he claimed would happen. Because, once again, the whole point of Spider-Man is that he chooses to use his powers responsibly and to help others, which perfectly contrasts with how the Green Goblin only uses his powers for personal gain and to hurt people. And that scene does a perfect job of showing which side each character is on, and that nothing either one says is going to change the other's mind. And again, as much as it says for the Goblin, it also says a ton for Peter, because he's completely at the man's mercy, and he knows him to be a psychotic murderer at that, and he still never backs down. And conversely, the Green Goblin is so messed up and entrenched in his own desires that his resolve means nothing to him beyond foolish idealism. And if nothing else, It's just fascinating to hear what the Goblin has to say in a controlled setting with a rival, but the movie still places him firmly on the wrong side of it all, as he should be. And for one final thing to say about that scene, it also proves Zack Snyder's claim, Ron, that you can't have two characters have an intellectual conversation while wearing ridiculous costumes, because that's exactly what Spider-Man pulls off. Though, if I'm being honest, I think only somebody like Sam Raimi, who already had an extremely odd style of filmmaking, would have had the guts to attempt filming the scene with the two in full costume. But once again, the scene simply would not work any other way. It doesn't matter if it is two people dressed up like they're at a Halloween party. The point is what the two have to say to each other, and both what they say and what it says for them as characters leaves the audience absolutely engaged in what they're watching. Basically, because the scene is both so well written and acted by Dafoe and Maguire, it doesn't matter if their costumes are a tad ridiculous, especially because, as I said before, with the way the movie is set up, it wouldn't have been nearly as effective if they weren't wearing them. Because, simply put, the two are able to show the other and the audience who they really are by keeping their masks on during the scene in a bit of brilliant but ironic symbolism. And once again, the combination of all of these different factors makes for what can easily be considered one of the best verbal confrontations between a hero and villain in a superhero movie. Alright, I think that's everything I had to say on that. So now I'd like to hear your opinions. Do you believe that the rooftop conversation between the Green Goblin and Spider-Man is one of the best conversations between a superhero and villain on film? Or do you believe there are others that have done it better? Please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And remember, you don't have to agree with anything I said in this video. You can absolutely hate the scene in question, or even the whole movie if you want to, and I nor anybody else can tell you you're wrong. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate all of it, and I hope to see you all next time.